This video contains some frightening images and should not be viewed by kittens, candy, or extremely girly men.
What are some of the scariest games you've ever played? Resident Evil? Silent Hill? Dead Space? How about Treasures of the Deep? Just about anyone that has played Treasures will tell you that it's one of the most frightening games they have ever played. Treasures of the Deep was developed by Black Ops Entertainment for the PlayStation in 1997. Quite possibly the first of its kind. Treasures puts you in a cramped submarine and has you completing various missions underwater. The game was designed to be very moody and sinister, but what makes it frightening is not the design, but the concept. You've been thrust into an environment not designed for humans, so without a keen awareness of your surroundings, you won't last long. 75% of your underwater enemies are bigger than you, and hungrier. The concept is simple. You pilot a submarine through 14 different underwater missions. These missions vary from retrieving a certain artifact, to recovering a weapons shipment, to fixing oil spills, and numerous others. To accomplish these missions, you have a selection of various weapons, equipment, and submarines to get the job done. Equipment consists of med packs, air tanks, improved sonar, flares, night vision goggles, and even an ROV that can be used for reconnaissance or to explore small areas. The selection of weapons is also varied, but the only two you'll ever really need and get the most use out of are nets and torpedoes. Submarines are sorted by 3 depths: shallow, deep, and fathom. Each one has different speeds, armor, and weight capacity, though unfortunately, even the cheaper subs are extremely expensive, so you'll likely have to go through some missions again to earn enough for the proper depth class of sub to progress in the game, which isn't so bad, since each mission is chock full of secrets to find. Movement is handled entirely with the shoulder buttons. R1 and L1 are for moving forward and back, R2 and L2 are for strafing left and right, and holding R1 and L1 at the same time lets you ascend, while R2 and L2 let you descend. It sounds simple, but sometimes it can be surprisingly difficult to use the right controls for the right situation. For maximum control, you would have to keep both your index fingers and your middle fingers on the shoulder buttons at all times. And since most people play with their middle fingers under the controller, you can see how that would get uncomfortable after a while.
In 1641, a brutal hurricane sunk the Spanish galleon Concepcion just off the coast of Puerto Rico. She went down with a wealth of Vatican gold and religious artifacts.
The soundtrack was composed by award-winning video game composer Tommy Tallarico. For the first couple of levels, the music is pleasantly tropical, but later on, themes get more tense and sinister. The music fits the mood perfectly, and truly adds to the tension while you're being assaulted by unseen foes. Something that deserves special mention is the scare factor of the game. Being underwater where you can't see more than about 10 feet in front of you is scary enough, but add in sharks, underwater pirates, and huge sea monsters, and the game becomes downright stressful for even the most steel-hearted people. Starting a new mission and not knowing what to expect basically ensures that you will have a non-stop flow of adrenaline for the duration of the mission. It can get very stressful, and some people have been known to actually shut off the game because of the stress. Resident Evil and Silent Hill are creepy, but Treasures maintains a constant tenseness throughout levels that rarely lets up. If you're gonna play, you'd better be ready, because the first time you're a fathom underwater with no med packs, and the hull and window of your sub starts to give in, and a giant squid is growing ever closer to finish you off, you'll start longing for a kitten to hug. Treasures of the Deep isn't a bad game, not in the least. It's just a little too frightening for its own good. Still, collecting treasure is satisfying, and netting lobster traps and wildlife for some extra coin is a nice touch. One small issue of the game is when an enemy gets up in your face. Once this happens, it becomes difficult to get to a safe distance to use a mine or a torpedo. So it's important that you pay close attention to your sonar to know what's around you. So remember to show the proper respect for the sea. It's dragged people to their deaths for thousands of years, and you're no exception.